First of all, I wanted to say something to Beth. Your presentation meshes with the one I'm going to do very well, so I appreciate you laying the groundwork. I also wanted to take a quick moment. In the past, it's a little over 4 years, I've worked with David Wilcock, and it's been an amazing journey. Last year, many of you know, David was given major warnings to back off from the secret space program narrative, and he could have very easily have done so, under serious threat. But instead, he was loyal to the truth and kept integrity, and he suffered from it some. But him and Beth have really held up and been really strong and are really showing that they have integrity for the truth and are not being blown by the winds like many are these days. I just thought that should be acknowledged. Okay, I guess I'm going to sit down so I don't block the screen. How many people have watched Cosmic Disclosure? A majority, strong majority. So I pretty much told my entire life story on that show. I talked about being an ET contactee at an early age, not exactly knowing what was going on, being brought into the military abduction programs, and then being an SSP insider. I first started coming out on blogs, releasing the information I knew. For probably over a year, I had put a lot of my information in a blog, and that was some of the first information I handed over to David when we first started talking, and he started going through it and was amazed. And while I was delivering the information on a covert sort of way through forums, I was then having these interesting dreams that developed into more physical contact with the blue avians, and it caught me off guard. And when they contacted me, they were telling me that I was a starseed, that I was here for a reason, and that there were many, many, many others like me here. And during this time, we're finding ourselves just coming together. And as we come together, our missions are being revealed to us. I'm also very close with Earth Alliance contacts, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. So Tier Air was the blue avian, of course, that I'd been in contact with the most, and other than the blue spheres. Most people think the blue spheres is some sort of just conveyance that brings me to the blue, or brought me to the blue avians, but actually they were an even higher density being. And the spheres that were in our solar system were actually beings. They were not technologies. They were these spheres. Size, time, space does not matter to them the way they exist. They could encompass our entire solar system, or they could become microscopic, or the size that is needed to transport someone. So they are actually beings. And I reported how I was then contacted by the Mayans and Ambassador Micca, and including a very scary encounter with White Draco. I've refused to be put in those situations again. It was indescribable. So that before was sort of a summary of what I'm talking about. There's me around 6 years old. That was right when I went into programs. They have no problem taking children into these programs and putting them through horrible experiences for training to bring out intuitive empath abilities, to enhance them, first with training and then with drugs that they would inject you with. And in the beginning, I reported that I started the programs when I was 6. But actually, the program started with my grandfather. In World War II, he was a conscientious objector. He did not want to fight. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. And they offered him the ability to go into a program that he was actually very proud of up until he died. They did experiments on him. And they told him that the experiments were to develop drugs and treatments for soldiers in the field, but it actually was the cover for a genetic manipulation program. So my story begins with my grandfather when they started manipulating his genetics. And then they paid attention to offspring, looking for certain markers in blood tests they would get through taking me in to the Air Force Base for blood tests and other tests. They were looking for markers. Not all of the children that came from this genetic program showed traits that they wanted. Some of them, they were recessive, the genes were recessive, and they didn't switch on. And so they were looking through entire families for maybe one individual, and sometimes families would produce no individuals. It's just the way it worked. So I was first drafted into the secret space program. I was actually 16. It was just before my 17th birthday. It was on Christmas break. It was during Christmas break from school, and my birthday is in February, so it was just a couple months before my birthday. And I was brought in and forced to go through a sort of where they just tell you what to expect over the next 20 years, that you're joining a 20-year program, and that, by the way, you need to sign these papers. And even though I was only technically 16 years old, they had me sign the legal papers. And then I was their property. All right, they considered me their property before that even. While I was in the programs, I had access to smart glass pads, a technology that accessed different databases, mostly earthly, depending on your clearance, and you interfaced with it mentally. If you had the correct clearance, then you were open to all of the vast ET libraries that we had been given or recovered from downed craft or other operations off planet to gather intel. That information was available to scientists and engineers, not the general people that operate the craft or even in command. It was the information was for the engineers and the scientists mainly, and because I worked with them, I had access to the information. Otherwise, much of the information I talked about on Cosmic Disclosure I never would have been in a position to know it, if I was not lucky or unlucky enough to work with the scientists on the research vessel. So I have contacts in the SSP Alliance. One of them was Gonzalez. He's no longer with the SSP Alliance. Another one was Sigmund, and as many of y'all know, he recently perished in an ambush that occurred on the Lunar Operation Command. Has everyone heard about that? Yeah, it's very unfortunate. He was transporting a lot of data that we had received on the Dark Fleet, which was the Nazi secret space program that went back 80 years or more. And they had everything, every operative, all of the information on hard drives. And he was to bring these to a meeting at the Lunar Operation Command. He felt that something was off, and he's a person that does not believe in psychic or anything precognitive at all, but he got a ping that something wasn't right, and he handed him off to someone that he says he trusted, but he always told me he trusted no one. He handed off this very valuable data to someone, brought in a decoy, and then went to the meeting. And sure enough, someone had gone in, and they're the ceiling tiles just like in any office, nothing spectacular. They had ceiling tiles, and up in the ceiling tiles, someone had placed a device. And this device, they called it a bomb, but what it did is it sent a very strong, narrow band of a certain type of radiation into the room, into a giant pulse, which destroys all organic material but does not affect technology. And they've used this in many operations on Earth, off Earth, going back. If you want to, if there's a ship and you're able to smuggle one of these things on, and you want to recover the ship later, you can set off the device, kills everyone on board, the technology is fine, and then they come in and retrieve the ship or whatever other technology that they're trying to retrieve. And Gonzalez and a handful of others died in this, but the information was preserved, thankfully, and more of that's coming out. I'm starting to get more and more briefings on that data, and I'm looking very forward to releasing it. I have sources. I've introduced Dr. Sala and David Wilcock and Jordan to some of them. Some of these people are very damaged people. They're people who have fought wars their entire lives. They're very damaged from the process, but they're trying to do the right thing. And they don't know how to do the right thing, many of them. They end up finding themselves back doing negative things. And that's been a problem with the Alliance. But the good thing is that many of these people that I'm talking to are generals, colonels in our military, European military. I've some politicians that are disseminating information to me, asking me to release it, like the two DIA documents. The people that handed that over to me were the people that printed them out from the NSA database themselves. It didn't go through 20, 30 hands. So these are very legitimate people that have come in to form this alliance, and they're trying to get information out to us through tools like QAnon. Many people, have a problem with QAnon and understand, but Q is an alliance operation. The president is working with military intelligence. I've known the generals that have been, I know some of the people that have been involved overall, and it's a military operation and a way for, and it is a way for Trump to troll the media. Like he needs another source to do that. So I was told that I was a starseed by an 8-foot-tall blue bird in a dream. I had interfaced and been aware of many different ETs. None of them were a blue bird, 8 foot tall. I was concerned. It took them a while of visiting me in my dreams before I started becoming comfortable, because the night after I had the first blue avian dream, I went out and I scoured the neighborhood looking for cars, any type of technology, anything hanging on a pole pointed towards my house, because I had worked with technology that could beam sounds and pictures into people's heads. So I was concerned, and it took a while for me to kind of open up to the idea that this was really happening and I wasn't being manipulated. So they told me that I came here to do this, and that this happens during every cycle. And it's basically being put in the position that Enoch was. Enoch had all of these experiences, and he described them from the vernacular and consciousness of the time. He would never be able to describe a submarine or a spaceship. That stuff didn't exist. So this is something that happens at the end of every cycle, and it's an opportunity that we're given to ascend. And I'm told that there are millions of just like me that are here. And like I said, we're all gathering and we're trying to discover that mission right now. So my mission obviously is to be a thorn in the side of those who want partial disclosure. And I've done a pretty good job so far. It's been a difficult road, but they could definitely, I don't think there's any way that they could try to roll out the partial disclosure narrative now. Too many people would raise their hands and say, well, what about Mars? What about, And so, we've all been very effective in that way. And to deliver the blue avian message that, that we, need to deal with our karma as though we have a choice right now with these energies coming in. And to do our ascension work, because the time really is short. And we've got a very short time to figure out what our mission is and implement it. And I think most of us, even those who don't know what our mission is or say we don't, we have a pretty good idea, because we choose life experiences. We chose the trauma that has happened to us as a boot camp for training. And once we realize that this has all been training, and we chose it for training, and then take that knowledge and apply it to the mission, it's very empowering. And all of the people that traumatized you, you kind of look at a little bit differently. So I tried to give this disclaimer. There is nothing that passes through the human filter that is not distorted. All of our perceptions are our distortions. The information that is presented to me, it comes and filters through my perceptions and my distortions. So people need to keep that in mind as the information comes to them. I'm definitely not a guru. People that know me closely know that I'm not the real pious kind of person. I'm literally Zen ends where butt kicking begins, for me. Yeah. So I've been. People have tried to set me up as all of these. They've misrepresented me and the information, and I think everyone here knows that.
Or cult leader.
Cult leader, blue chicken cult, which you recently joined. So speaking of this crazy, unique experience, why all the turmoil on this planet? We hear that other planets go through similar things, but this is a special case. This seems to be where all the hard cases that are brought during other cataclysms on other star systems. You're still third density. You've had all these opportunities. You're going to Earth. You're going to Earth. So that's pretty much the mixing pot that we have. A lot of these, and there's a reason for the condition of the souls that come from the solar system. There have been a lot of cataclysms. This is a very rough solar system, but these beings believe that evolution does occur through stress. So the stress that we all go through is very much a part of ascension. We want it to be a beautiful, non-violent, non-negative thing, but it's all a part of the process. And this whole experience is about experiencing duality for the one infinite creator. People often ask, why do we lose our memory of who we are when we're born? It's because you're all God. And if you remembered you were God, you wouldn't be able to have this horrible experience. So the one infinite creator wanted to have all of these experiences, and we are doing it. We're doing it.